Hey guys, so today I have Whitney Ens on here. We are going to be talking a little bit more about Jiu-Jitsu, but from the aspect of what it means to be a Jiu-Jitsu practitioner that is also a wife and a mom and probably just has a million other things going on. And for those that are just interested in kind of knowing more of the dynamics in training and staying consistent throughout life, one thing I've noticed, Whitney, I don't know if you have, but it's really easy to start jujitsu,
Mhm.
especially when you have the high. And then when life hits, I guess it can get easy to disconnect. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you started number one, and then a little bit more about how you got into no gi when you had done gi and no gi, and kind of what made you veer into being more
Yeah.
just no
So I
gi.
started jujitsu about 6 years ago, and my husband started first. He'd been doing it for a couple of years, and initially, I sorry, is it loud for you? Is it- okay,
I
cool.
hear in the back, but you're
I just
good.
almost
Like
okay. All of a sudden, I'm hearing my
that's what
kids
we
like
want.
singing, and there's a bunch of stuff. I'm like, okay, anyway, okay, yeah. So my husband did it for a couple of years, and he was like, "You really got to do this. It's really fun, really cool." I went and watched a bit, and I think I had the reaction that most people have when they first see it, where it's like, that just looks gross. People sweating all over each other, like in your mouth and eyes, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'll ever do that. But then as he was, he'd been doing it for a couple of years, and we kind of like mess around, and I try and like do jujitsu with him, knowing nothing about jujitsu. And I just thought it was so cool how he could manipulate his body in a way that he was doing jujitsu. Like it's like magic, right? When the first time you see it, you're like, how is this happening? How did I end up here? What's going on? And so I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to know how to do that. So that's how I started. And I started in the gi, and um yeah, it was like obviously just like super challenging. I felt like I'm never gonna get this is like, but I was like loving it because it was super challenging. And then how I got into nogi was we moved down to Austin, Texas in 2021. And my husband was like, oh, we should go check out this gym, 10th Planet. Like it's kind of a big deal. Like they're like nogi specialists, things like that. We'd never really done nogi. And so I went in there, and I just like loved the energy. Like it was just so chill. And maybe that's just a 10th Planet thing. I've traveled around. I've trained at a lot of gyms like around the world, and different gyms have different energies, right? Different like there's like a vibe. And like I love the vibe. Everyone was so chill. It was like nobody was like bowing and whatever, and everyone just like, yeah, take your like late, show up. I don't know. I liked that like laid backness. And I also noticed that there were so many women, and especially in Canada, growing like doing jujitsu for the first time in Canada, there just weren't a lot of girls training. Whereas at 10th Planet in Austin, there was
Yeah.
like, I walked in, I saw like 15 girls, and we were all around the same size. I mean, I'm taller than most of them. I'm 5'6", but like we were all around the same weight, you know? And I felt like it was the
Mhm.
first time I could really like full send my jujitsu, because I had someone with like my size, and no one was like overpowering me by accident or otherwise. It was just, we were the same. And so yeah, that's how I started. I got into nogi. It was really just like the energy of the gym, and it was all the girls. And then it was like a whole brand new challenge. Like I was a blue belt starting at 10th Planet, and when I first started training there with other blue belts, it was like night and day, because it was like a different sport. Like they were just so much better than me. So I had to like relearn
Yeah.
jujitsu from like the nogi perspective, with like different kind of grips and like the clinch and all that kind of stuff. And that's just like a brand new challenge. And I loved the fluidity of nogi. I loved how much it was faster. It felt more like, I don't know, natural is the right word, more intuitive, I guess. Maybe because I've been doing jujitsu for 2 years already. And so yeah, I just fell in love with it. And I was like, I don't know how I can go back to the gi. Like it felt like I'd be playing two different sports, and I really just wanted to focus on getting good at one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you put the gi away for a little bit or up until recently. Do you feel like you're ever going to go back, or do you feel like you just are good with doing no gi? Because I did no gi and gi for 2 years, but I flipped. Like I was like, nah, I'm just doing gi. I don't want to do no gi. Um, and I don't think it's like, because I'll still do no gi just for fun, because we can just take off our gis and go no gi. But I I don't know. Also felt like I
Wow.
was always getting bruised, but like it's because of the constant
Hmm.
like clenching or grabbing. But I can get over that. It was because I started in Florida and we didn't have, like, AC and guys were doing, like, shirts and skins and a lot of stuff, and I was like, "There's nothing to absorb this," like, it's just dripping in my face. Um, but I always give myself that loose, like, open end of, like, I think I'll go back, but I don't ever feel like this crazy pull, like, I have to do, where I used to kinda feel that, I don't know if you felt it, like, the pressure, like, I should know both, I should be good at both, and then there comes a point where it was about 2.5 years in where I was like, "I'm gonna do what I enjoy because I know I can do it long term, and I'll put it on the back burner, but I can always go back to it. It's just gonna be a different entry, like a different way of reintroducing a different level of that sport." How do you feel like going back to
I don't
are you,
know. I
like,
can't say I'm
done,
done.
or
Like I've put the gi on a few times. Like I had say a handful of times. I mean, I was helping teach at Tim Kennedy's gym, Gracie Umaida in Cedar Park for a while. He has a gym there. So I was helping teach the kids classes for a bit, and my kids were doing his the kids classes. So I had like the gi on, like I wore it and stuff. And I probably put it on a handful of times to train, and it was fine. Yeah, I guess I enjoy nogi more. So it's like and I want to. I love this sport so much,
Yeah.
and I want it to be a part of. I want it to be a part of my life forever and ever. And if I'm in a gi, it's just it's not going to be. But it doesn't mean that I'm not gonna like dip in every once in a while, put it on. But yeah, like the excitement, the fun, like I love nogi so much more, and that's why. So it's pretty much same thing. Like it's just you do what you enjoy, right? And some people they love both, like they genuinely love both. You know,
Yeah,
I think that's really cool.
yeah. And like you said,
Yeah.
they're different languages. I think that I mean that the way that you're playing the game is just so different in both of them as well. So let me ask you this because this is one of my favorite topics and I think people don't talk about it a lot. When you're married and you're training with your partner, so you guys he started first and
Hmm.
then kind of introduced you. Do you guys roll or like just mess around together? Do you guys actually train together? Has it improved your marriage? Because you also, he and you both talk about marriage like tips and improving marriage. I think this is actually probably one of the best points that we can talk about for people coming in newly married, or maybe they're about to get married and they're both training and
Right.
maybe at different levels. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
what how did it start
so
and
our
where did you
business
guys
is we do marriage coaching. We help people prevent divorce, and we work with men exclusively. So we're very much like our entire world is marriage and like healing relationships and all that thing. Like that's what we live and breathe day in and day out. We run the company together. He's the face. He's the head coach, but we run it together. We have our team. So as far as training together, so yeah, so he started 2 years before me, so he was obviously better. And then started taking it a lot more seriously. Started training. I mean, I was training like 3, 4 hours a day, 5, 6 days a week. So I started to surpass him skill wise. Like I knew more things, right? Um, but
yeah.
he's so much stronger and bigger, and he's also just pretty darn good at jujitsu. Like he's got like the balancing. He understands like how
Yeah.
to balance his body and all these things. Um, so initially, I would say it was fun because we're both kind of new, and he was just sort of playing. And then my ego started to get involved because I was like, I should be better than you. I know more than you. I train more than you. But he just always got the better of me, and I know, and it's just like and he wasn't trying to be. I mean, I would like get him in a leg entanglement, and then he'd have no idea what to do, and then I could get him that way. But aside from that, um, it was hard because it was honestly really hard for me to train with him because, um, yeah, I say my ego got involved, and then um, also I don't like to view and this is just a personal thing, and it's probably a flaw. It could be a flaw, but like I don't like my husband. I don't like sparring with my husband. Like I don't like that competing with him. I don't like feeling like we're going head to head, even though he's never really going hard with me. For me, it's like I just want him to always just be this place of safety and security and like take care of me and not try and like mount me and choke me. So for me, it's I never liked the way it felt like when him and I were doing jujitsu. Uh, Now, so that was that was kind of the phases. Now we can definitely play around because I take myself less seriously. Like 6 years in, I feel like I know it's still I'm still a baby in the jujitsu world, right? But I don't take myself seriously anymore in jujitsu. I really just have fun and I play, and I don't care if he gets the better of me. And I don't. So I don't. So I've kind of grown out of that. But for a while, it was definitely like I don't want to. I don't want to see you. Like I don't want to feel that. And so maybe it was a mix of like ego and just like discomfort with my husband like taking my back, you know? Whereas I don't feel that way with anybody else. It can be any other like any other dudes or whatever. Like I don't care. I don't have any kind of connection to them. They're just training partners. But for my husband, it's yeah, it definitely it felt different for a bit. So it was a bit of a struggle, to be honest.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So now you're more comfortable with it. Do you guys have like certain days where you guys kind of mess around and play like practice together, and then there's certain days where you kind of just do your own thing, or is it just like pretty often? Because there are some spouses where I've noticed like the females can get pretty comfortable with like feeling secure and feeling that safe person, that same person that you know and you live with, and so they trust them
Mhm.
and they know they're not going to get hurt. But to the point where like they don't experience like the camaraderie of everybody else because they're a little bit nervous. Then you have the other people where like they don't have that boundary or line, and all of a sudden like they'll get into it real fast because they just is a lot of times the girls, we're
Mhm.
more emotional by nature, but number two, um we know like we might be trying to attempt something and they're just having fun because they know like they
Yeah.
don't need to overpower or whatever. And then I think it can get us more worked up because like we're trying over here and
Yeah.
it's not working. But do you guys have any boundaries, or are you guys just like you frequently hang out and work out
Do we
together
have
and
boundaries
practice
like in
together
our
now?
jujitsu training?
Yeah, like where maybe you guys roll some days and then some days, like for example, like me and my husband, if I know I'm a little bit more stressed or emotional and I know that my bandwidth is a lot tighter with him just because of the nature of whatever's going on, we just
Mhm.
don't roll or interact at all. Like it stays off the mat. It's not fair to either of us. Um, and then when I feel like I'm struggling, like he'll just be like, hey, like let's be partners. And he'll know to just like come alongside me and just be like, hey,
Mhm.
let's get out of your head. Um, so normally it's very evident like once a month where I know I'm like a little more sensitive and crazy. And we're just like, yeah, we're just not rolling, practicing, nothing together. And it's usually like it works really well. And then when we have a fight outside the mat and we're still not good, like maybe it's over or maybe we're in the middle, we don't roll just because we don't want that
Mhm.
aggression to come in if it's, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's not totally resolved yet. I don't know if you guys have any
Well,
little rules like that.
Matt doesn't train very much right now, and actually, neither of us are training as much as we used to, just because our business and kids and things like that priorities have shifted. Our time is uh, our as our business is growing, our time is less. I guess you could say we have less time to do that. But yeah, I would say when we were training together, definitely kind of the exact same situation as you and your husband. So like they're yeah, when I'm like in a playful mood and I'm feeling good, it's like yeah, we'll have a great time. But if there's anything else going on, yeah, no, I can't because I get frustrated, right? And also because he's the person that I'm closest to in the world, like I'll be vulnerable and I'll let my emotions kind of come out and I'll be really frustrated or upset or annoyed. Whereas like if I'm with a female training partner or something, like none of that's coming up for me. You know, I'm just like I just got that we're just vibing, like we're just connecting because we're on the mats and like, let's say someone gets me in a triangle or they submit me 18 times or whatever. It's like, damn, like that was like good for you. Like I gotta figure out how to get out of it. I gotta figure out how to not have that happen. Right. But like good for you. Um, there's sort of like this like love in our sport for each other. Like we're like pumped when people get the better of us, but we're also like it's like an internal thing. Whereas if Matt gets the better of me, like I'm never like, oh, that was great. Like, why did you do that? Like, don't ever do that to me again. But if I'm in a more playful mood, if I'm
Yeah.
feeling good, yeah, so very similar. Then it's like, okay, cool, good for you. We actually we rolled. I feel like maybe a few weeks ago, and he got the better of me in something, and I was like, good for you. That was awesome. And he was like, oh, thanks. Like he was pumped about it. Yeah. Cause I don't usually have that reaction with him. But again, like a lot's changed in how I view jujitsu and how I view myself in jujitsu. Um, so I have a positive reaction majority of the time now.
Yeah. And you said that you guys have gotten a lot busier with kids. They're
Our
what
son's
are their
11 and
ages
our
right
daughter is
now?
7.
Yeah, so you guys are like right in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
trying to build a big business
Mm-hmm.
and it's going well and you guys are invested parents obviously. You have a lot of other probably external life things that have to be naturally taken care of. Um, I think sometimes people do like an all or nothing type of mentality, and they do forget that there's seasons. Like there are seasons where it can just be more challenging. But you did say you are still rolling. It's just going to be different now. How have you gone about that shift in your seasons? Because I feel like some people just
Mm-hmm.
quit once and for all, or they do figure out a way to adapt.
Yeah,
But
I've had to figure that out
what were your
because I so love jujitsu and I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it in my life, but yeah, I can't train the way I used to. It's just I'm not. It's not possible for me right now, and so I'm in that season of like I'm training less, but I just force myself. I just like even when because I feel like when you're in the you have that momentum in jujitsu where you're like you're on this routine, like you're getting up, you're going every day. It's just so natural, and it feels so good, and it's like nothing can stop you from training. Like training is everything. And then yeah, when you go through that season of like life, the other things are happening in your life. It's really easy to like let it go, and then feel so discouraged to show up because you're not like as sharp as you were when you were training every day, right? Like you're moving slower. You're not connecting the dots as quickly. Um, People that maybe weren't getting the better of you 6 months ago all of a sudden are. It can play on your ego. It can be frustrating, right? I just had to like let all that go and be like, I'm not here to be the best. I'm not here to be the number one competitor. I'm not here to beat my teammates and like, maintain some this like pseudo hierarchy that we have in this gym. I'm just here to play and have fun. And as soon as I change my mentality, it keeps me in the game. It takes the pressure off, and I'm still in the game. And one big way that I do that is by getting privates. I know not everybody can get privates, but jujitsu where people are willing to help each other out, in different ways. Like I think there's ways to kind of help each other. And I've been working with this black belt, Chloe McNally. I don't know if yeah, she's a black belt. She's won a whole bunch of world titles in the gi and stuff like that. She's amazing. She trains at Aroka with like John Danaher and them, and then she's a coach at Henzo Gracie, and I've been seeing her for privates like twice a week just to kind of keep my head in the game, like because if for me if like I pay for something and I schedule it, I will go. Like my money's
oh,
invested in this, so it's like okay, I have to show up. Whereas like maybe getting to the gym for like classes or open mat, like maybe I'm not going to make the time for that, but so I just kind of like create these little systems for myself where I have to show up, and then it stays.
yeah.
And yeah, and then when I do get a chance to like go to open mat or whatever, I just have fun with it. And I just recognize this is the season I'm in. The season of life I'm in right now is like focusing on family and business, and like my health, and being really. And I'm 37 years old, so like I also want to be mindful of my body and the longevity of my body and things like that, and the longevity in the sport. So that's just shifted. Now that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna, you know, get back into jujitsu again, like like a crazy person, like I was. I might. Who knows? And that'll be fun, and that'll be cool. But did I answer that question? I don't know. I think.
Yeah, yeah. Like, so essentially what you did is you created different systems that still allowed you to
Yeah.
not feel so discouraged. And I think that that's probably something that, I mean, I've even considered too, because we're, thinking of starting a family soon. And my biggest thing was like, okay, how can I make this work as it's changing? Because life's not going to stop. Problems aren't going to stop. Challenges or shifts in life don't end. But like, what can you do to show up differently, which is either doing privates or a personal training, or trying to see if you can do at least twice a week. You don't have to go 4 5
Mhm.
6 times a week like you're used to. um, and I think at first, which you would probably agree, because I'm kind of at that point right now, it's a hard pill to swallow because you know what you're also sacrificing by doing that. And at first, you're like, I don't know if it's gonna be something doable. But then you're like, you know what, it is doable because I have other aspirations as well. Jiu-jitsu's not going anywhere, but you have to kind of, I think, bring yourself back down. Um, there's one thing that I've noticed recently as well as a female, and I don't know if did you
No,
train
I
while
didn't
you
start
were
jujitsu
pregnant?
till my our youngest was 1.5 or 2. No, she won. Yeah, she was probably 1. Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay, so oh
yeah,
man, so it was like right,
yeah.
your body was like
You
just
know, I've
recovered
always been
and
super active
everything.
during my
Okay,
pregnancies, and I've always been an athlete of some to some degree. So like, my body was like, that we got this. It's fine. I think if you want to have, when you want to have children and be pregnant, I think that you should do whatever you're comfortable with, one, and whatever you are used to doing. Like, if you're a runner, you can run while you're
yeah,
pregnant. If you're not a runner, maybe don't take it up for the first time while you're pregnant. Right? And like Elizabeth
yeah,
Clay, I mean,
exactly.
she trained through her. I know she's like elite next level, obviously one of the best females in the world, but she trained through her whole pregnancy, and then she just won. I don't know what it was. She won, was it PAMS? She won something. She just won black belt something, and she had her baby's like 3 months old.
Yeah,
So
that's insane. But yeah, you're right. It's because she's trained her body to understand like what it's
yeah,
going through and to bounce back. And so are your kids training at all? Do you have them in anything like that, or what are you?
they both done jujitsu. Asher did it for a few years, but neither of them really enjoy it. And I think jujitsu is a sport that you have to enjoy to get good at. You know, um, I mean, there are parents who disagree. They like, I think I overheard like the Rocha family, when they were kids. The dad was like, "Nope, you have to do jujitsu, like no matter what," and that's cool. Not my jam. When it comes to my kids, I want them to do what they love and find their passions that way. So my
Yeah,
kids do different things. My son's a huge golfer. He's on the junior PGA, like in Austin. Yeah, and he loves golf. That's his sport. And then our daughter's a dancer. She's like she's an artist, and yeah, just the idea of like other kids like being on top of her is no, she could not stand it. And maybe that'll change, when she gets a little older. I mean, I'd be thrilled if they got into jujitsu, obviously. But whatever they want to do is what they want to do.
yeah. I feel like there is definitely a ebb and flow, and it's probably also based on the child's like personality and what they're able to like withstand, like discomfort or closeness versus like also
Mhm.
competitiveness and losing. I mean, I think that in and of itself, you'll see like in tournaments, it's really good for kids because they have to
Mhm.
emotional like regulation. I mean, it's massive, especially losing in front of a bunch of people, and then they have to
It's
go
so hard.
back
It's
for
hard as an
more, and
adult. I
so
can't even imagine as little as a child, but it's good for them. It's so good.
yeah. Yeah, so now kind of veering off because I do want to go into like more of not just jujitsu, but understanding like your
Mhm.
family dynamic and business. So when did you guys start your business as far as when it really started to scale and build? How did that look
Oh
as far as
yeah,
what
like
you had to sacrifice?
a lot. So it's we started our company in 2022, and then it started taking off about a year and a half ago. So like end of 2022, it's like a year in, I guess. Um, we went from like here, and it just went like this. And then business is always like this. Entrepreneurship, it's never a steady, right? Um, and so we just had so much to learn because we were not social media people, tech people. Like, we didn't understand any of that, and my husband decided, we decided together that we were going to do this, and we had no idea. So it's just been like tons of learning curves, and especially like we're not teenagers learning this. We're like in our 30s learning this with a family, trying to be successful. So yeah, I mean, I don't even like just simple things like payment processors. Like, how do you make that work, right? And then just so it just takes hours out of your day that you otherwise would have had, because you have to deal with like this thing with, I don't know, Stripe or whoever you're working with, right? Just stuff like that. Like, just like learning everything from the bottom up of running an online business. and then him and I having to tag team it because you can't do it all on your own. And obviously we have a team. We now have 35 employees, so we have quite a decent business, and we have an amazing team. But the buck still stops with us. So our life is different in the sense that, my husband Matt used to just kind of go do his job, sort of clock in, clock out kind of thing. He was an investment advisor for 15 years. And when the day's done, the day's done. When you own a business, the day doesn't really end, right? Like if things need to get done at 2 a.m, like heaven forbid, because that sucks. But if there's an emergency or things have to happen, like you have to be on at all times. Now, that being said, we've also had to learn to not be in that position, right? Like we have to learn to guard our time, and to delegate and to not do everything. And so that was also a learning process. That also took time, right? So going from like being able to predict our schedules and train, like, okay, well, I'm going to train from like 11 to 2 on Fridays. It's a little tougher now because things come up and I might have a meeting at that time and I have to do it at that time, right? So just being more flexible with myself, like not being hard on myself for not being able to get into the gym, but also trying to make some sacred time, like to work out, to train, to go on dates, to do these things. So it's just been kind of like a learning curve on like how do we balance this new life of entrepreneurship, and then our children, like they're our number one priority no matter everything. And so like if the business is taking up a ton of my time for whatever reason, but I want to train, but I haven't really hung out with my kids like properly. It's like, well, they're gonna come before jiu-jitsu, right? So it's stuff like, and we're getting a lot better at organizing our time, and we have an amazing team. We have an operator who he handles so much. He's incredible. So the bigger we get, the more we're able to delegate. The easier our schedules are, and kind of. It's cool when you're in business because you can live from and wherever. Like we were in Europe. We lived in Europe for 3 months last year. We took our kids. We were like schooling them. We ran our business from like five different countries, right? Like we're traveling and like working kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
that's cool, right? But yeah, that's
It comes with a price, but it also comes with massive reward if you're willing to like do what it takes. So right now, you guys, so I mean, the business is still pretty early on. I mean, that's crazy the amount of growth that you guys have had. Have you noticed? So what made it? I'm curious how it's gotten specifically more towards men versus doing both. How did it go about? Was it more natural that it went that way, or did you find out that the level of interest as far as what you guys could do in the business it ended up favoring the guys that were reaching out versus as a couple?
It was a conscious decision to work with men exclusively because we typically when divorce is on the table, it's initiated by women. The statistics are like 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women. And men are often very confused and very lost. Like they don't understand how this place. And so why we work with men is to be able to explain to them in a way they'll understand like what happened in their marriage, what caused the degradation of their marriage. Matt is really one of his greatest gifts is taking very difficult concepts and ideas and making them very understandable. And so he's able to communicate to men what went wrong, even though their partner or wife has probably been trying to communicate it for potentially years. The way that men communicate is so disconnected at times that the man thinks she's communicating it and he's not understanding it. So we work kind of this in between. We teach men how to understand their wives, understand what's going on. We teach men what women need. So some of the biggest elements of our business are safety, security, support, and we teach men what that means to make a woman feel safe, secure, supported, seen. And when men are able to understand this, and we give them really good actionable steps to heal their marriage. Women typically in the 97% Like they will come, they'll come back. They're willing to make it work. If they see that their husband is changing, he's taking accountability, he's putting in the effort, the work, finally gets it, finally understands. Women more often than not are willing to try again because that's all they really want to begin with. And so that's why we work with men because they're the ones that kind of got themselves proverbially kind of dug this. I don't want to put blame because it always takes two, but so I'm not going to use that language because it always takes two. But men end up in a position where they're lost and they're confused, and we help them get out of that state and take charge again of take charge of their lives and show their wives they really care, really love them, and want to make it work. And then the female half of that is because Matt and I went through our own problems. We were separated for 6 months. We've been together for 14 years. We were married for 13, and we've had our own troubles. So beyond our education, beyond everything we've learned about marriage, we've also experienced what these people are going through. And so
Yeah.
like women have to take accountability as well. Women also have to like kind of own their shit and work on themselves. But they're not going to do it unless they feel safe. Like they're not going to open up to their husband and be able to unless they feel like truly can be understood. And so we feel like once the men kind of get that healing going, then the female half can come in. She can kind of rest in her feminine and start to heal herself. And we would love to work with women eventually. Like that's the goal. Kind of as like an integration process of that healing. And we are going to do couples retreats starting in March. But we find that working with men is really it's very fruitful and it's very marriages end up having great success when we work with men. So that's kind of why we do that. We were pulled in that direction and it's also been proven to be true for us. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think it's also really needed. And I know this sounds cheesy because it's going back to jiu-jitsu and life, but I feel like it's a lot. They bleed into each other in a lot of ways. I think because I've trained so long, but I've also had a lot of hardships, and I've been married where it takes active effort on a consistent basis to like keep things good. Like putting things in the back seat or not talking or breaking things down, even in the details. It doesn't have to be like overly, because women can get fixated on stuff too. So you want to be careful with how I word it, but if you can, I think, break it down, like even in jujitsu, and kind of backtrack or see like the process and how you've gotten successful, and you just put that into your relationship or into your work or whatever, which people end up doing, I think, which is why jujitsu ends up becoming a huge phenomenon, is because you learn a lot of these small disciplines and they're very applicable in day-to-day life. And so I feel like, and then the experience, like the more you train, the more you kind of see the game and the details, the more you can help somebody else. And so you're like not only in training, but you have been actively in marriage, had your moments of failure or challenges, and then come back around and find those solutions. I think a lot of people, this goes into jujitsu and relationships, and I've seen it a lot recently. So that's why I really wanted to talk about it, is because we get tunnel vision. I think doesn't matter who, but some people can get so tunnel vision on what the spouse is not doing, or going back to jujitsu, like why they can't seem to excel past doing arm bars or whatever. And then you break it down into like little steps, right? Or like small things, or talking from somebody else's perspective. And I think the men's perspective, you hit it right on the head, I think, as well, because the men are like the head of the house in a lot of ways. So taking that initiative to create the change, I think, is all what women really want. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be intentional. It has to be genuine. And ultimately having that woman feel like, okay, there's hope, right? There's hope that we're not going to just like blow up internally, and then it's just going to be like a horrible, miserable time, because divorce is skyrocketing. And it's dangerous. So I think that's amazing that you guys are doing something like that. Kind of tying that into a little bit more detail, what has been like a difficult challenge that you've noticed in working directly with men versus not? as far as like the consistent challenges? Because I think that would be helpful.
Working
well.
with men in sovereign man.
Yeah. As far as like as they're starting their challenge or trying to recover their marriage or kind of create forgiveness, whatever it is that they're looking at, what do you feel like a commonality is with men when you're hearing about the different marriage?
I think the most common thing is that men just have honestly have no idea how they're making their partner feel. Like when we break it down for them and they'll give us a scenario. Okay, well, let's see. Anger, for example. So men will raise their voice or like look, we have to solve this right now. Like the wife might go to the bedroom to do something to kind of remove herself from the situation. She can't have this conversation right now. And he'll like follow her. He'll chase her. Right. Or he'll do something even more extreme, like angry, punch a hole in the wall or something like that. And the man's thinking like, he's just trying to deal with the problem, letting off some steam, not realizing that in that situation, you're actually making your wife feel extremely unsafe. Whether it's conscious or subconscious. Maybe consciously she knows you're not going to hit her, but subconsciously she's aware that you're a bigger, stronger being who can hurt her, and you want her to open up, be vulnerable, and deal with this problem in that moment where she has probably a lot of fear, even if she's unaware of it. Like she's trying to get away from you and you're chasing her. And men don't understand that like this is not the path to reconciliation and healing and to open conversation. That's the direct path to putting up a giant wall of protection and like get away from me. Right. And so when we explain to men like, hey, like you're making her feel unsafe. And they're like, holy, it's like, whoa, can't believe I've been making my wife love most I want to protect more than anything. I've been making her feel unsafe. I've been making her feel threatened. Like I would say that is a common thread. That men just don't understand until you break it down for them, and then they're like, they'll never do it. They don't want to do it ever again. Matt has a funny story he tells sometimes where. One time, Matt and I were in a big fight. And I was afraid of him. I was uncomfortable. He was just, he wouldn't let me speak. Like he kept talking over me, and he just wanted to be right rather than like come together. And so I walked away. I went to the bedroom, and the door, and he came up, and he picked the lock. And he thought in his head, he's like, oh, she's gonna think I'm super cool because like I can pick the lock. Not realizing that like I'm trying to get the hell away from you, and you are chasing me and you unlocked my safety. Like you can't you blast your way into a safe space. And looking back, he's like, I can't believe what an idiot. And the funny thing is, a lot of men hear that like what's the big deal? And so we explain that. I would say that's the safety element is pretty common. Men not realizing that the power that they have, in a relationship, and we very much align with men are the head of the household. You want look. There are women who are naturally masculine, and there are men who are naturally feminine, and that dynamic is yours. Like you're a masculine woman and man, and it works. That's perfect. But we work with men who want to be masculine, who want to, and whose wives don't like to be in their masculine. Right. So like if we were working with women, and it would be them taking charge, it would be them being their masculine, trying to drive the change, and that's not what we're looking for. Working with men who want to be the proverbial like kings of their kingdoms, or captains of their ship. And it's like you can only do that if the crew trusts the kingdom feels safe with you as their leader. And if you want to be the lead. And I use air quotes because I do truly mean the lead, but not in like that 1950s like walk in the door, make me dinner. That's not okay. That's abusive, right? But if you want to be the king or the head of your family, you have to take responsibility for the family. It's on your shoulders. You have to wear that heavy burden. And then guess what? Once you do, everyone around you wants to support you and love you. And I use the word serve, but I use it more in like a godly kind of way. I don't mean serve like here, baby. I mean serve you with love. Like, I serve my children. Right. I serve, and it's my greatest joy to be in service of my family, and so that's what I mean when I say that. And so when men take that responsibility and they make those changes, the woman she can rest, she can relax, trust, and then she becomes the wife that he's always wanted as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of times what ends up happening too is, I mean, over the years, I'm a few years behind you in age and marriage, but over the course of just social media and acceptance and what, is put in our faces as normal, I think it's so easy for women to just feel like they need to. And I would also say sometimes it's not always instinctive, but a lot of times where women will just try to go in and fix or go in and try to like correct, and then it can get toxic. And so you also have to be cautious of like you're there to be the helpmate and help, recorrect or iron out whatever needs to be ironed out. But then it does have to be this whole area of keeping the respect and trying to make sure that you guys are companions and you guys are working together. But if he feels like he needs to steer the ship a little bit different, you can question him. Like I feel like you can be like, well, give me a good reason as to why you feel that way, and kind of get on the same page. But one thing I've noticed over time, because I'm much more, my husband's like real chill. He also, we grew up in a very different dynamic and like communicating as a whole. So that was like a whole fun experience, was just like internal versus external communication, and then you come together and it's just like flames in the beginning, trying to figure it out. But I think he had to learn to like talk me down, and it wasn't ever. I would get feisty and like angry, but I also had three brothers. Like my family was much more aggressive, even if it was just even lovingly. They're just more up in your face. And his was like, we don't talk about anything, everything's quiet. And when we had to come together during our, hardships and things like that, we had number one mentors. Like I'm a huge fan of counseling and mentorship. But number two, going to people that support marriage and that aren't discouraging marriage, because there's a lot of people out there that, especially women, you have to be careful with who they're talking to, but they'll be like, but you don't, you can do it yourself, girl
But
power.
do I want? I mean, right? So you can.
But it's you can be more powerful
and we earn each
together,
other's respect. We have to earn each other. Matt doesn't, because he's the head of the household. If you view him that way, doesn't mean he gets to walk all over me and make decisions for me. Absolutely not. Like I'm a very independent, strong, and somewhat stubborn woman, and everything's a discussion. Look, like there are times where I'll let him. Again, I allow him because he's earned my respect to take charge, take the lead. We were in a conversation yesterday with some friends, and I had a couple of drinks, and I didn't really read the situation correctly. I thought I was saying something nice, but I guess I was kind of. I don't, without getting into details. Matt was like, hey, like drop it. And I was like, oh. I was like, okay. I'm like, I trust him. I know he has my best interest at heart. I don't understand why I should drop this. I don't understand it, but I'm gonna listen to you because like I trust you, and I know that you have my best interest. Clearly, I'm saying something that's making somebody uncomfortable, and I don't realize it. And then this morning we talked about it. He's like, this is what was happening. That's why I said that. I really appreciate that you listened and that you heeded my advice. He's like that makes me feel really good. He's like, I'd never ask you to stop speaking about something if it wasn't a big deal or whatever. And I was like, yeah, no, that makes total sense. Okay, yeah, thank you. So it's like that kind of thing. Right. In the past, I would have been like, what do you mean? Like, no, don't tell me what to do. Like, he's so defensive and like, just, and it's like, I'm assuming that his intentions aren't pure in that moment, without realizing it. Whereas now it's like, you've done so good by me for so long. I know if you're like enough, you're picking up on something that I'm gonna listen to you.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to end with this, because this is something I've also come in contact with for women that stay in jiu-jitsu versus not stay. And I want to hear your thoughts. So I think a big reason, there's a lot of different women that come in doors. You've seen and work with way more than I do. I've noticed that they have to have a level of grit. Like they have to be willing to um, have, I guess, level of stubbornness and also the level of competition. Like just not willing to be like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like you have to have some care and some willingness to kind of battle it out, I think, to withstand jujitsu. And I think of that for a few or in a few different cases, but one of the cases is we lose a lot. Like we actually just like I mean, we win a lot when we're going against each other, but when we're going against men or people that are significantly larger than us, we have to be willing and okay to like kind of eat crap and then come back and be like, you know what can I learn from that? Or it's been like a really bad day. Let's go back on Thursday and see if we can correct it. And I've noticed that a lot of women get phased out after about 2 years because number one, we do have different responsibilities and roles in life, and they don't always know how to systemize it. But number two, I think it can feel discouraging because they're trying to go in and almost assume that they're going to be very similar in their progression, like maybe men that they started with or people that they may have started with. And I think for women, like I see a lot of grit and a lot of like underlying like crazy fiery like spirits, which I love. And those are the top two things that I see when I'm like, all right, this person's gonna last. Like I think they can make it. I don't know how the girls are. What's their character or attributes?
So as soon as you started speaking, the word and the image that came to my mind was fire. Like they have a fire in them, right? There's a reason that the majority of my best friends are all jujitsu. Like I have maybe a couple of friends with my whole life that don't do jujitsu. The women that I connected with the most in life over these last 6 years are women who train. And yeah, it's because of that. There's everything you just said. There's grit, there's fire, there's like intensity of and a passion to learn and to be better. You know, and if you come into jiu-jitsu, I've seen the girls that come in kind of phase out or whatever. And I'm not gonna say I can tell because that's like I have a magic like I don't have magical powers like but you can kind of see it like behind their eyes, the ones that are like okay I want to get this, you know they don't give up and they're ambitious in their endeavors, right. And I love powerful strong ambitious women and I don't have anything in common with women that aren't driven. And in jiu-jitsu, you have to be. It is such a difficult sport. It sucks for so long. I still suck. And I'm doing it for 6 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like you have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with I may never master this. I'm not gonna stop trying. And I think that's the same thing in like marriage or business. Like we have a marriage now, but we still have to work at it. It's always going to be work. It feels great. Most days our life feels really wonderful. But there are really hard days too. And I believe in my marriage. Believe in jiu-jitsu. I believe in our business, things like this. So I'm not going to give up. Right. Now, if you like your leg is broken in places or your knee from jiu-jitsu. Okay, you know what? You got to take a break. You gotta heal, and that's true. Like with everything in life, right? Marriage, same. It's like the heart can only take so much. If someone is hurting you for like over and over again, at that point, like what do you do? Right. We're not advocating to stay together. In the event of like serial heartbreak. I'm not advocating staying in jiu-jitsu if your body can do it or it needs a break. Right. But mindset is everything in life and in jiu-jitsu. And everything in jiu-jitsu is like interchangeable in life, right? And I think that's what you're saying. And I agree with that completely. And the seasons of jiu-jitsu, just like the seasons of life, they're challenging, empowering. It's a journey. Everyone's had the word journey. It really is. Journey of jiu-jitsu, like the journey of life, and it's really cool. And one thing I love about jiu-jitsu too, it's like the only place I can go where I'm like in complete flow, like where nothing else matters,
Yes.
like my
You're not
nothing,
thinking,
right? Because like every inch of your body is active, and it's like someone's trying to break your arm actually, but submitting, right? So you're just constantly aware and looking for your sequences and things like that. And it's just so I only imagine what our brains look like, what would look like under a scan we're doing jujitsu. It's probably just so lit up, right? Yeah. So and there's nothing in the world that I've ever experienced that does that for me other than jujitsu. So
Yeah. I think that's also how I got fixated on it as well, was because I was in a really hard point and coming back from South America and like just pretty much getting dropped off and like, okay, you have to adapt. And much less it was in like upstate New York where it's cold and I didn't have winter or anything like that. And then there's cultural, differences that I had to get used to. So then I find jiu-jitsu and I'm like, oh, I just have to like understand the game and figure it out. And so then you're so encompassed with jujitsu at the time because you know nothing, that it's so easy, I think, to forget about real life for just a little bit, the hardships. And I think that's also how, like you said, women last specifically, but because men, I think they have some things inside them, a lot of them, that it's easier for them, I feel like, for it to click and be like, oh, I love jujitsu. And sometimes women, it's like, okay, this is weird, but I could see how it's helpful. And then, like you said, you'll see it in their eyes within a week or two. Like, are they doing it because they're intrigued by the game and the intricacies, or is it just like, oh, this is super fun to hang out and like, some women like they see a lot of men and they're just like, oh, which one? And I'm like, no. Like,
it's not a dating live dating app.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't gotten that a lot, but you will see once like that and you're just like, oh boy. But I think that jujitsu has become a big lifesaver in a lot of ways for people in dark places, but women specifically, because we have the capacity, I think, to think of so many things in like the most inconvenient times, like right before bed or when you're waking up or whatever. And when you go to jujitsu, you're like, oh, if I think about this, I'm gonna get choked out real fast. And that's one thing I feel like that's been a really cool thing to watch different women come back down. Like they can self-regulate because they have a place of safety where they're able to just be challenged physically and mentally and forget about everything else going on in life. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing as a coach and mom and everything else in between, jiu-jitsu practitioner. I think it's really cool talking to somebody also who's like a lot of no-gi, because like different aspects of the game, but in such a cool same foundation, which I really like. I'm gonna drop the links down below once we share the podcast and once we share like the different short videos as well. Is it cool if I also share the link to your guys' coaching little
absolutely
yeah,
for sure. Love that. And thank you for having me on. This is a really cool conversation. I've never done a podcast before, so my husband's done like I don't know 75 of them. So he was just like just a conversation. And you did such a great job. Because I feel like it's the person hosting that can feel like feel at ease or not. So it's been really nice to just be able to have a conversation. I felt like I've known you for a long time. I just met you. Really cool. Thank you. Yeah.
We'll be even closer if we roll one day together. It'll just be like, oh my gosh, I've known her my whole life.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Whitney. And if you guys want to check her out, and as well as her husband, I will attach the links down below. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.